All right, let's get into it. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most compelling and honestly well-documented UFO cases in European history, the Alfena Incident from 1990. This one is a real head-scratcher.
So, picture this. It's a clear night, and an entire town looks up at the sky and sees, well, something they can't explain at all. And for over 3 decades now, researchers have been trying to figure out exactly what it was. It's a mystery that just won't go away. And listen to this description from someone who was actually there. It gets right to the point. We're not just talking about some random light. This thing was moving in ways that, our planes and helicopters, they just can't do that. That's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. It's just so bizarre. Okay, so let's set the stage. We're heading back to Portugal to the year 1990 to really get a feel for what went down that night over the town of Alfena. This sighting blew up pretty quickly and became one of the best documented cases from that time. The reason it's still such a big deal for UAP researchers is because the reports, the evidence, it was all just so solid. It's a real benchmark case. So what makes this case so hard to just brush off? Well, a few things. First, you've got a ton of people all telling pretty much the same story. Then there are actual photographs. And remember, this was before Photoshop was on every computer. On top of all that, you have whispers of weird radar contacts. Put it all together, and yeah, you've got something that's really tough to ignore. All right, let's get to the core of any investigation like this. The eyewitnesses. The people who saw it with their own 2 eyes. What exactly did they report? And here's what's really important. It wasn't just one group of friends making this up. We're talking about a whole mix of people. You had local residents, farmers, students, even the local cops reported seeing it. When you have that many different kinds of people all describing the same weird thing, you have to take it seriously. The amazing part is how similar all their stories were. These people weren't all in a room together. They were seeing it from different spots. And yet they all described the same thing. A bright light that moved silently, could just stop on a dime and hover and then shoot off at incredible speeds, making turns that, well, they're basically impossible. This wasn't some shared delusion. It was a shared observation. Okay, so you've got all these credible witnesses. The next logical step for investigators? You got to look for physical evidence. So let's see what they found, moving from human eyes to machine sensors. Now, we have to put ourselves in a 1990 mindset for a second. There were no smartphones with 4K cameras in everyone's pocket. High-tech imaging wasn't something you could just pull up. So the fact that they managed to get any physical evidence, like photos and some radar data, is actually pretty remarkable, and it makes what they found even more compelling. So the physical clues really fall into 2 buckets. You've got visual evidence, the photos. They prove something was there, but, photos can be grainy or even faked. Then you have the sensor data, the radar logs. These suggested something weird was flying around, not acting like a normal plane. But radar can get wacky with atmospheric stuff. So neither piece of evidence is a slam dunk by itself. But when you put them together, that's when the story gets really interesting. Okay. We've laid out the witness accounts, we've looked at the physical clues. So the million-dollar question is, what was this thing? Let's walk through the top 3 theories that have been kicked around for decades. First step, let's start with the most down-to-earth explanations. Could it have been something natural? Weird atmospheric conditions creating a mirage, or maybe a super rare phenomenon like ball lightning. Even a bright planet like Venus can look like it's moving when it's near the horizon. These are all plausible ideas, but the big problem is, do any of them explain an object that seemed to be under intelligent control? Theory number 2, it was one of ours, just top secret. The 1990s were the golden age of black projects. We're talking about the development of things like stealth aircraft and next-gen drones. It's totally possible that what people saw was some experimental military craft that would explain the speed, the crazy maneuvers, and of course, the government would never admit to it. That's just part of the game. And that brings us to theory number 3, the one that really gets people talking, that it was extraterrestrial. The people who lean this way point to the physics of it all, the way it moved, hovering silently, then accelerating instantly. It just breaks the rules of aerodynamics as we know them. And these aren't just one-off descriptions. This is the classic profile of UAPs reported all over the world. So let's stack these theories up against the actual evidence. A secret military plane? Okay, that could explain the speed, but witnesses said it was silent and brightly lit. Stealth planes are usually dark and loud. A natural event? Sure, that could be bright, but it wouldn't be making intelligent 90-degree turns. See the problem? No single theory fits all the pieces of the puzzle. Each one explains part of it, but leaves other parts completely unanswered. So you might be thinking, okay, it's a cool story, but why does a case from 1990 still matter so much? Well, let's talk about the legacy this incident left behind. Maybe the biggest thing the Alfena incident did was change the conversation in Portugal. Before this, if you saw a UFO, you probably kept it to yourself. You'd be dismissed as crazy. But Alfena, it had so many good witnesses, it had photos, it made the subject serious. It basically gave people permission to talk about what they saw, and it led to actual research groups forming. And you have to remember, Alfena wasn't happening in a vacuum. The 1990s were a huge decade for major UAP sightings. The very same year, you had the massive Belgian UFO wave. A few years after that, thousands of people saw the Phoenix Lights in Arizona. Alfena wasn't just some weird one-off event. It was a major piece of a much larger global puzzle. And that's really why this case is so enduring, isn't it? The evidence is just too good to simply throw out. But no single explanation really truly fits. You've got this perfect storm of credible people seeing something that just shouldn't be able to exist. And that's why it's still considered a classic, a true unsolved mystery in the world of UAP research. So here we are, more than 30 years later, and the Alfena case is still officially open. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? With all our technology and all our science, are we really any closer to understanding what's flying around in our skies? Cases like this remind us that maybe, just maybe, there are still some huge mysteries out there waiting right above us.